Morning, everybody. Let's go with that one. All right. Morning, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. So, this video will talk about time value of money. Um, it's something that small business owners often think about on a daily basis. It helps them in the decision making process because if you understand time value of money, then it makes you feel more comfortable making decisions, especially if the decision involves you know, large amount of money, like $10,000, because now you're thinking about, okay, time value of money, how's that going to affect my small business? So let's give some framework here. Let's talk about gross revenue. Let's say gross revenue for the week is $5,000. Now, your net income is going to be what you get to keep after expenses, with especially if it's net income before taxes, because you won't know your taxes till the end of the quarter. But let's just say roughly a rule of thumb would be 50%. So you're going to gross 5,000 for the week. You're going to have a net income of 50%, so 2,500 for the week, and you divide that by. Uh, let's make it easy. Let's just say you're going to work 5 days for the week. Okay. Well, we all know we're going to work 7, but 2,500 divided by 5 is, what's that going to be? That's going to be more like, $500 a day for net income. Okay. So let's say, for example, you have a truck repair and your truck is in the shop for 5 days. Okay. So in those 5 days, how much money did you not make? Because now you're not driving, so the cash flow came to a stop. So, how's that affect your small business? Well, this is the time value of money because, you over that period of time, over 5 days, you would have had a net income of $2,500. It cost your business $5,000 for gross revenue. So, what's the true cost of that breakdown? It would be the cost of the repair plus the lost opportunity to make that extra revenue. So, if the repair cost 5,000 and you did not make 5,000 in gross revenue, then the true cost of that breakdown was actually $10,000. That's what it cost your business to have a breakdown for 5 days and a repair bill that cost $5,000, because there was value assigned to that amount of time that you did not make. So this is why owner operators are very focused on maintaining their truck and avoiding breakdowns. Hello, people. So it's something that it becomes second nature to you after a while, because it's like, all right, you want to think about taking 2 weeks off, going on a little mini vacation. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's highly recommended, so that you can get some R&R, some rest and relaxation. So let's talk, how much is that actually going to cost your business? Well, you don't have a breakdown. That's good. That the truck's not being repaired, so you won't have the repair aspect of it, but you will have a cost associated with not making revenue over those 2 weeks. And if it's gross revenue is $5,000 per week, so take 2 weeks off, it costs your business $10,000 to take 2 weeks off. So when we say, okay, my gross revenue for the year is $200,000, for example, we'll just use a broad number, $200,000. Could be more, could be less. $200,000. Okay, well, take 2 weeks off. That costs you $10,000. Now you're not $190,000. So it's like, well, I don't want to take too much time off here because it's going to cost me money. It's like, yeah, now that you're self-employed, you have to think about how much is your time worth. So this is where you want to spend your time wisely, because your time has value associated with it. So let's say, for example, you're a big fantasy football guy, okay, and every weekend you spend all your time with fantasy football. Well, that's an interesting hobby for sure, but you could also assign, if you wanted to, you could assign what's that costing your business. If you're taking 2 days off just so you can do fantasy football. Well, that's costing your business, about $500 a day net income. So it's like, do you really want to do that? Because your time is valuable. It's one of these things with DIY maintenance. If you wanted to do repair yourself, and owner operators are very, very smart. They figure shit out. So if there's a repair on their truck that they wanted to do, and they have the tools, and they're going to take some home time, and they're going to do the repair themselves. Well, there's a cost associated with doing that. It's just the time value of money. It's like, okay, well, um, let's say if you took it into Freightliner and had a Detroit diesel certified mechanic do it, uh, you would wait 1 day to be in line, and then your truck would go in the shop on the second day, and then on the third day the repairs would be completed. It's like, okay, well, that's 3 days. Let's say my net income for each of those days $500, cost you $1,500. Not, just to sit there, it cost your business $1,500 plus the cost of repair. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do it myself. I'm like, oh, okay. So you can do it yourself. You could figure it out. You could find some videos. You could do some research. You could talk to your other trucking buddies on Facebook, and you can get a lot of help. So you decide you're going to do it yourself. Well, it didn't take 3 days for you. It took a full week. So it's like, okay, well, you did it yourself, but it cost you more because of time, value, of money. You're like, well, I saved $1,500 on that truck repair. You're like, uh-huh. And how long did it take you? Well, it took me 7 days. And you're like, oh, okay. So the mechanic would have took 3 days, but you took 7 days. So you took 4 days longer than the mechanic. So 4 days times $500 a day, okay? That would be your net income. So that was $2,000. But if you had gone with a certified mechanic, he could have done it for 1,500. You would have been on the road sooner, and you would have had a national 1-year warranty if you would have allowed the mechanic to do it rather than trying to do it yourself. So, when you think about time, value, of money, this will help you in the decision-making process. It's like, well, do I want to do it myself, or do I want to hire a mechanic? Well, oftentimes your better choice is to hire the mechanic. They'll do quality work. They're proficient. They do these repairs all the time. They'll give you a warranty, and it will actually be less expensive for you to hire someone than it would be for you to do it yourself. You see this sometimes with homeowners. Very, very busy homeowners. Why do they hire guys to mow their lawn? Well, it's not only their lawn better taken care of in some cases, but it actually saves their money on time. Their time is valuable, so it's cheaper for them to hire someone to mow their lawn than it would be for them to take time out to mow the lawn themselves. That this is kind of like the uh, distribution of labor is, look, I got 10 things I have to do. I don't have time to do all 10 things. Let me hire people to do some of these other tasks that I can delegate, and then I'll focus on the higher functions of the business. My time is more valuable to my business if I focus on generating income rather than mowing the lawn, or doing truck repairs. So I can delegate those types of things, and it's great. It's a great decision because I understand the time value of money. Okay, my time has value. And there's other examples of time value of money. Not just those types of examples, but let's say, for example, you have $100,000. We're going to use a big number. Okay, and you're going to put it into an investment portfolio like a S&P 500 index fund, which historically gives you 10% return on your money, and for the year, and you're going to leave it in the investment portfolio for a year. So 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. Okay, over the course of the year. All right. Now let's say by comparison, you did not put the money in the investment portfolio, but you had it, and stuffed in your mattress and other places that didn't earn you any interest. So, in one example, because of the time value of money, over the course of a year, which is a length of time, you earned $10,000 of interest. In the other example, you stuffed it in your mattress, you didn't earn anything. So the time value of money was worth something over time. It was worth 10% if you had it properly invested. So you see this over and over and over again. Different examples was like, can you assign value in real dollars for that period of time? So let's think about, oftentimes you'll hear small businesses talk about return on investment. Okay, what's your ROI? What's your return on investment? Let's say, okay, I bought a APU for the truck. It was $10,000. Maybe probably more, but let's just say $10,000. Um, and it's like, okay, what's the return on your investment? And you're like, well, it's going to save me about $1. It's going to save me a gallon of diesel per mile. Because usually my miles per gallon is 8, but now because I have the uh, APU, I can get 9 miles per gallon. And it's like, okay, so how long is it going to take you to realize the savings to pay for that APU? You're like, well, this is how many miles I drive for the year. I drove, 100,000 miles at 8 miles per gallon, and now I'm driving 100,000 miles. I'm getting 9 miles per gallon, and the cost of fuel is, $4 per gallon. And then you could calculate how many miles you got to drive before you realize $10,000. And this would be the length of time you get that return on investment, because it may take you a full year to realize $10,000 worth of fuel savings, but is that a good purchasing decision? Well, perhaps, because you understand time value of money. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to keep this truck for 3 years. So the first year, I'm just going to break even because that's how long it's going to take for me to get my return on that investment. And then I will enjoy the fuel savings for the second year I own the truck and the third year I own the truck. So the first year just paid for itself. Okay. But the second year I saved additional $10,000. And then the third year I saved another $10,000. So over the life of, you owning the truck, a 3-year time period, and life of you having that APU, the APU costs you $10,000, but you save 30,000. So you're ahead by 20,000. And you make these decisions because you understand the time value of money. You're like, oh, I know what my ROI is, my return on investment. I will realize my return on investment within the first year. And then going forward, I'll have additional savings because that APU will be paid for, and I'm still saving money on diesel. So, these are things that become second nature to the owner operator, because these are business decisions. This is the decision making process. It's like, well, I'm not opposed to spending the money, but let me first do some calculations in my head, or let me get my calculator out, and let me talk to a couple of guys and decide if that really is a good decision. And whether or not it's a good decision or not, it's going to be based on time value of money. So it's like, how much is your time behind the wheel worth? Because you'll hear guys say, well, I'm only getting paid $1 per mile. It's like, well, okay, but you're driving 500 miles per day, so that's your net income is close to $500 per day. So you can use these numbers and they'll help guide you. That's all there are. There's just like, let's put it in perspective in dollars and cents. As a business person, you can understand. So when I say I want to do an engine overhaul, and the mechanic says, well, I'm going to need a full month, to work on your truck. You're like, oh, well, wait a second. Let's think about that, because you're going to charge me 30,000 for the overhaul, plus you're going to consume a whole full month worth of my time. Well, there's value associated with my time. That's going to cost my small business, tens of thousands of dollars. Lost opportunity to make that money. So then the true cost of that overhaul was cost of the mechanic plus the cost of you not making money. So there was a cost there. It's the time value of money. So you think about those things. It's like, well, whenever you want to do something that is time consuming, you're like, you know, that's there's a cost associated with that, and that cost is the value of your time. That's like there's time value of money associated with that. That's why it's like owner operators, generally speaking, will spend their time wisely. It's like they will spend their time talking to other owner operators, for example, but they won't spend a lot of time talking to company drivers. You're like, oh, why is that? Why are they so standoffish? Well, they're not standoffish. They're spending their time wisely. Their time has value. If even if they're not driving, they still got to do accounting. They got to do finances. They got to do record keeping. They got to do maintenance. All that takes time. So they understand that their time has value. There's a cost associated with their time. So if they're hanging out at the company terminal and driver's lounge and they're chewing the fat with the company drivers, they're wasting time. And that time is costing money. So you want to spend your time wisely. Often I will spend my time rather than fantasy football, which I never understood why people would be interested in that. Some people do. I listen to business channels. I don't necessarily watch the regular news. I'll watch the business news. Because as a small business owner, I get more return on my time by spending it with other business people. I will talk to the mechanics. I will talk to the tow truck drivers. I will talk to other owner operators. But what will I not do? I will not waste my time necessarily. Occasionally it's okay, but I will not waste my time talking to company drivers about their dispatchers. That's a total waste of time. Then, and sometimes all they want to talk about is how bad their dispatchers are. It's like, well, I'm a small business owner. I don't have time to sit here and babysit anyone. So this here is a whole new level of trucking once you're an owner operator. It's kind of like you ever hear the saying is, if you want to, if you can't run with the big dogs, stay under the porch. It's kind of like that because, um, what is it about the owner operator that distinguishes them from a company driver, from a personality or the way they act or the way they behave or things like that. It's because the owner operator is much more focused. As a business person, they're much more focused, much more in tuned. And it's like they are the CEO of their own small company, so they're a man of action. They're not sitting around wasting time. They got things to do, and even on their days off, they're rushing to get things done. And what the reason why is because there's costs associated with their time. If they're not making money, then they're spending money. Even if money's not being exchanged, as time goes by, you know their time has value associated with it. So if they're not going to sit idly by and just waste time, because time is money. Even if I'm not driving, I still got 100 other things I have to do for the small business, and I'm not going to delegate that to someone else. I'm not necessarily delegate my record keeping, for example. So my time has value. My time is very valuable. So I don't want to waste my time. You often say, the phrase, if people hear you say, "Don't waste your time." Why is that? Because your time has value. So if you want to, watch stuff for entertainment, whether it's Star Trek or NFL or college football, it's fine. I mean, this stuff is great. There's no doubt about it. But realize when you do that, you are spending time. It is actually costing you money. So, but you can't be full business mode 24 hours a day. So you are going to take some time for rest and relaxation. And you are going to enjoy some of those things for entertainment, even though you know in the back of your mind it is costing you some money. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the internet.